And this is a great place to be because people who love to eat are the best people. Julia Childs said that. And if anybody knew food, it was Julia. First thing we do when we start to make anything is we wash our hands thoroughly. Now, this morning we're going to make biscuits, just plain biscuits. And I use the recipe that's on the bag, with one exception, where it calls for 1/4 cup of Crisco. I use 1/3 cup of Crisco. That's why the biscuits we have here are a little fluffier. Now, to measure, we dip into this because it requires 2 cups of flour, self-rising flour. Level it into the bowl. Now, to measure the shortening, I'm going to use what is called the displacement method. I'm going to pour 2/3 of a cup of whole milk, which is cold, into this and then I'm going to put shortening in there until it comes up to 1 cup. That way I have 1/3 cup of shortening and 2/3 of a cup of milk. And since I wash my hands thoroughly, I'm just going to use them to get the shortening. And I want 1/3 of a cup, you'll see. There it is, 1 cup. So that's 1/3. Now lift that out, put it into the flour. This is called a pastry blender. We're going to cut the shortening into the flour. And it's going to be a little bit on the lumpy side. You just go around and around and around until Now, I sometimes do this with just my hand. After you get experienced, you can do that. But we always start off by doing it this way because you want little bits of shortening in the flour, and when it rises, it makes little flaky layers. Oh, I didn't tell you, but I did preheat. I'm preheating the oven to 500 degrees. This is a quick bread. It bakes quickly, maybe 10 to 12 minutes. Now, do you see how this is kind of beginning to look like a little lumpy? You work it until it's kind of like small peas. Now, I'm going to add the milk. You can do this with a fork, but you know, God gave me these hands first before I learned to make a fork, and I just use, but look, I'm using my fingertips, not my whole hand. That's something I've noticed my students will do in the beginning. They sometimes put both hands in there and they have it up past their elbows and they've got 3 biscuits sticking to their hands. And we could have eaten those. You do not want to over mix it. And do you see how it's very moist? That's the way you want it. Now, we're going to put some flour on our counter, which I have already cleaned. When we're making biscuits, the thing we have to make sure is we do not overwork them. Now, yeast dough, you work it a lot because you want to develop the protein and the gluten in the flour, and it has to act with the yeast. But this, if you put too much flour out here, you will have a mess. It would be tough, and the only thing worse than a tough biscuit would be cold coffee. Now, as you can see, this doesn't make a great deal. It makes about a dozen small biscuits. Okay, I'm going to get my rolling pin. Or as I tell my students, this is called a rolling pin. And this one, it's a rolling pin also, but it can double as a husband tamer. A few whacks to the side of the head, and he will fall right in line. See, humor too. In this class, if we aren't having a good time, something's wrong. Roll it out to about a 1/2 inch thickness. This is parchment paper. I use this because, well, the biscuits wouldn't stick anyway, but it makes cleanup easier. And I'm all about making everything easy. You take the cutter, a little flat, and go as close to the edge as possible, because you don't want to have a whole lot to roll out a second time, because the more times you roll it out, you're getting more flour in it, and you're going to end up with a tough biscuit. And we've already decided we didn't want any of that. Place it on the baking sheet. Now gather this up, still using your fingertips. Don't get your elbows in it. Mix as little flour as you can. Now, look, I didn't even use the rolling pin that time, I just used my hand. As I said, I had those before I had a rolling pin. And in this class, we make something that we call scrappies. See these little bits? I don't roll them out again because they're going to get tough. Just 2 rollings is all I ever do. And I toss those there, and they're little crispy bits. Miss Brown, you know, little bitty Miss Brown that teaches science upstairs, she loves scrappies. And we always save her some scrappies. We also use those when we make gravy. We just have those little bits and scraps of biscuits. You will have a hot, flaky biscuit to eat. Place them about the center of the oven for baking.